I think we can start. You can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. And Billy, you're recording, yeah? Ready to record? Okay, cool. Well, welcome everyone to the last LOH of 2023. Today is 20th of December, and this is LOH number 9 of this year. This is a special edition because we will be looking back on what we've achieved so far over the year with a bit of reflection. Thank you everyone who's been joining us faithfully, and let's go straight into it. And we do plan this session to be very interactive, so please chime in at any point. So in terms of agenda of what we have today, we're going to start with our regular segment of updates on Launchpad development since last LOH. Then we're going to look into end of year review, what we've achieved, what's still left to do, all of that. We'll talk about some of the road ahead and challenges, some priorities, and then we'll move into open discussion. Okay, so starting with updates on Launchpad development, to just get that out of the way. So since last LOH, we have released new stable releases of Nimbus, Arbitrum Nitro, ProxyD, I think Ericon as well. Welcome back, Payne. And on Launchpad namespaces, again, we have stable releases for storage, Postgres operator, monitoring, Gnosis, Ethereum. Basically, most of the namespaces, specifically because there was a ProxyD upgrade as well. But yeah, we've had a lot of stable releases this since last LOH. Some other things that have changed on Launchpad namespaces. We have deprecated Arbitrum Girly. We call it for namespaces Arbitrum 1 Girly. We have deprecated that from the Arbitrum 1 namespace because there's no more support. And similarly, we have deprecated Graph Girly, so the Ethereum Girly network on the Graph setup and Graph Arbitrum 1 Girly, both flavors for the Graph namespace. And we have also updated the Postgres operator default patronic config, and I will briefly touch upon that. So I have a couple of issues that I want to quickly go through, and then we'll get from there. Okay, so I think on Monday, this issue was hit with setting the need to set gas limits on Arbitrum Girly that has been observed on Arbitrum 1 as well, so like on the mainnet. Thank you, Payne. I think you were the one who raised this. So thank you for raising that on Discord. This is the link for the graph node explanation. But what we did is we've included this into our default for the Arbitrum 1 flavor on the graph namespaces. So we've added this environment variable to deal with this particular issue of things breaking when there's a gas limit on Arbitrum. All right. Then one thing I briefly wanted to mention is, and you'll see in the new year, one thing we need to improve on is like the whole monitoring, but there is this issue that I've created on Launchpad namespaces to document that sometimes Loki shows failed to load chunks when object storage is not configured or not properly configured. So we have an issue to deal with that, whether it's to improve the documentation for all of the users so that we're all aware of this issue happening and why it's happening. But just for anyone who's using it, just so you know, if you see fail to load chunks, there's this issue that has more details, and please do reach out. And then one thing that we have come across that we've implemented on Postgres operator namespace by default is adding this option for the Patroni configuration. Just to remind to everyone, Patroni is a template for Postgres high availability, so it's used in the Postgres operator we use in Launchpad namespaces and is in charge of automated failover, replication management, and health checks. So it continuously monitors the health of Postgres instances. So we've added this option here, and the reason why we've added it is because by default, Postgres operator comes with this, I think it's DCS, distributed consensus mechanism, where it checks the health with the Kubernetes API backed by etcd. So if at any point your Kubernetes API becomes unhealthy, then your whole database goes into read-only mode, and it starts struggling. There is this link I'm gonna quickly paste. That explains why this is happening. But we have added this failsafe so that the database is not going into read-only mode if there's a very a temporary failure with Kubernetes API. Yes, you want to know about the health of your cluster, Kubernetes cluster, but putting a database into read-only mode is not the way to go. So this is done by default. If you need to change it, you can change it in your own Helm files. We're basically hoping that other people won't come across the issues we've had recently. Okay. Carlos, did you want to cover anything in terms of issues? Or is there anything I missed?
I can just quickly correct. DCS is distributed configuration star, but yes, that's unimportant. No, I think you can keep going. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Distributed configuration store to solve the task of the leader election and detect network partitioning. Thank you for that. Okay. End of year review. The biggest change this year, we went from Launchpad v1 to Launchpad v2, where I hope this image sort of visualizes the difference between the two, where the first one was was missing some features. It wasn't very customizable. It wasn't usable for everyone. And the second one is more modular, more features. The astronaut is happier, all of that.
Hello, IT. Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Exactly. All right. So let's quickly do a super quick, I'll just whiz through this. What changed from V1 to V2? Yeah, V2 has more rockets. So Launchpad charts is officially supported outside of the Launchpad stack, which means that you can use it without using the rest of the stack. And this is exactly what Semiotic is doing. Then we took away the K0s provisioning layer. It had challenges, but yeah, we personally are now using Kubernetes and Fedora CoreOS as a way to manage our Kubernetes installation. But I know Pinax is playing around with K0s. Semiotic is using Google Cloud. Everyone is using something different, which is great because for V2, there's no dependency on, it doesn't matter how you get to getting a Kubernetes cluster. As long as you have a Kubernetes cluster, Launchpad should work. We removed Launchpad core submodule, and we replaced it with Launchpad namespaces. And we've updated Launchpad starter to inherit from Launchpad namespaces. Some things there, so for Launchpad namespaces, there's a lot of automated release channels for tracking updates, so stable and canary. We have namespace configurations with flavors and features, and we have a lot of greater modularity, all in all. That's the gist of it. You've seen this before, so there's no point in going on about it more. In terms of reflections, we have a few points here. Please feel free to chime in at any point. But some of the things that we've reflected upon, so one thing that we've achieved was reducing time from upstream releases to availability in Launchpad in a consistent manner. So specifically in the last few weeks, this has been going on even more smoothly. We want to push automation further by having comprehensive automated testing that is good enough to release without human intervention. We're not there yet. In terms of upstream releases to availability, we're also have set up internally something we call Rollout Monday, where every Monday we test everything, all of the test nets in prod, and then we make sure that everything works. So there's still space for work there in terms of testing and stuff, but we've been doing an okay job with reducing the time. All right. Another reflection is on the documentation. As we all know, documentation is the bane of existence for every single engineer. But we've made some progress there. So in terms of producing, keeping up to date, high quality documentation, we have set up generated documentation for namespaces, which was quite a bit of work, but has been paying off really well. It is kept up to date in an automated way. We produced some guides, but we didn't cover as much of the guides as we would like to. So, for example, one of them is CoreOS. We still need to improve our actual docs, but in terms of generating documentation on namespaces, repo we've been doing quite well. Launchpad charts, there's more work to be done there. The charts themselves have an automated documentation that works, but the overall repo needs more work. I did not say documentation is banned from existence, but maybe it should be. I don't know. But yeah. Okay. Another thing.
Yes, I would like to add something here, Anna, which is on the documentation front, we've been putting a focus on having it kept up to date in the most automated way we can. And that was a bigger investment for the case of Launchpad namespaces. We also have something in place with the Helm charts having value tables generated automatically from the codes on the charts. We're still missing a front page, maybe a table with charts, which has been pending for a while. But I think both here in the case of documentation and the previous slides about testing and automating releases in that flow is a big emphasis for us because we really can't afford to do so much manual operational work. I mean, it's doomed to not be kept up to date because we have limited resources. And that has a trade-off, which sometimes implies a bigger upfront cost in development time. But it's the way to go for us, which kind of explains why the upfront cost sometimes is bigger and progress is not as immediate as we would like sometimes. Sorry, just wanted to add there. I think it's a common theme for these two slides that what justifies us following this path is a very high interest in reducing that sort of toil.
Thank you, Carlos. Yeah, everything you said makes sense, and thank you for adding. Okay. Cover this, and then pursue a development model where we dog food Launchpad in our own infrastructure. So we have been really strict about this. So for example, Nethermind and Heimdall charts are not seeing stable releases, only canaries, and that is because we haven't been running chains that require Nethermind and Heimdall yet in our own infrastructure. So we have made anything that's stable has also been thoroughly tested by us in-house. I think this is something that we're quite happy with. The fact that our own use cases are helping drive Launchpad development, which enforces a minimum of testing usage and usage as well. And as you've seen with the example of updating the Patroni configuration, we came across an issue and then we made the change so that other people don't face that issue. So we're very much into dog fooding. Yeah, everything we're doing. All right, in terms of achieving more modularity and flexibility, over the last few months, we have introduced scaling interfaces, and these are to allow for control over workload management. And real power here lies in the capability of scaling interfaces to automatically scale workloads based on the specified replica count, but also update all of the endpoints and the values for those, and the values without manual intervention. We have also added the ability to override chart version and chart URL. This was a community requested feature. This is particularly beneficial for those scenarios where the default namespace setup doesn't align with a person or a user's specific requirements. So this provides flexibility to specified versions and URLs that are best suited for individual needs while still getting the benefit of namespaces. And as Carlos is mentioning in the chat, for the previous slide of dog fooding, yes, indeed, the larger community is very welcomed to chime in, share your use cases, challenges, and open bug reports. And we've recently had an example of that, well, multiple examples. The one that comes to mind is our monitoring stack. Pinax was using our monitoring stack and some things weren't showing up, and then we updated the task file and how you pull in latest Helm files so that you often get all of the changes. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to explain to you what dog fooding means with the literally, but yes, it's just like an expression that says try your own, yeah, use in-house your own products basically. British people, right? Okay. In terms of, yeah, we've covered the modularity and flexibility. In terms of community growth and engagement, we have a few stats for you. So since we've restarted LOH, I think it was August or September, we've run successfully 9 LOHs. The recordings on YouTube have 200 plus views on average, which I think is a good amount for such a specific project. The graph community has given 300 plus likes to LOH related tweets. So it's great to see that the graph community is engaging, and we have had sometimes 40 plus people joining us for our live sessions on Discord. So thank you to anyone who's engaged and join us and keeps on coming and all of that. All right. In terms of some challenges and learnings, there's many here, but some that came to mind around the updates and deployment as a technical hurdle that will continue to be there. Rolling out new updates to chains always needs to be done carefully to maintain network integrity and avoid data corruption. And given the nature of the workloads that we're running, sometimes avoiding data corruption is not easy. So yeah, that's why we're trying to test everything, do this whole dog fooding and rolling out things to test nets and then main nets in a stage type of environment way. Another challenge is that implementing and managing various blockchain consensus mechanisms within a Kubernetes cluster requires a thorough understanding of both technologies which can be a barrier to entry for using Launchpad, because both just indexing and running an indexer, but also running Kubernetes are quite hard to do. We appreciate that sometimes that can be a barrier to entry, but we hope that with LOH, with documentation, with us trying to be as available as we can for support, this is becoming easier and easier. All right, I would like to leave some space for open discussion and for LOH, like what do you expect for LOH in 2024? And then we can also cover some, what we plan for the road ahead for the next quarter and some of the things that haven't yet been included in the Launchpad stack. But I want to pause here for a bit and see if anyone has anything to share, any feedback, any open discussion, any what you'd like to see more of, anything really. And Chris and Carlos, if you have anything that I haven't added already, we'll create more rockets as well, Carlos.
Chris, on that subject, I have a question for you. and I'm very curious of the answer. So, when you assign workers, those live in. So, what's the ideal setup? You run Kubernetes on bare metal, right? And you spin up workers. So bare metal plus network storage. So when you spin up new workers, they just land on some node that you assign from your rack or from your data center, right? Is there a possibility for me to actually decide which node to direct those resources to? And also, most importantly, can I pin those resources to specific CPU cores so they don't overlap?
Yes. So there were a few questions there, and I'm not sure I kept track of all of them. But I think, yeah, it would be good to get into kind of specifics, and yeah, kind of just discuss it. But yeah, Kubernetes provides a pretty powerful scheduler, and mechanisms like taints and tolerations and node selectors. And so there are various ways of kind of matching up physical hosts with workloads. And the idea is obviously that at some point you have so many workloads that it's not really feasible to manually schedule them. So you just kind of give the appropriate constraints to the Kubernetes scheduler, like the resource requirements of the workload and all of that stuff, and it figures out where to place things. However, you can manually place workloads on nodes relatively trivially. Yes, as Carla says, keywords of interest. If you search about those things, you'll find. So there's a lot of flexibility in scheduling workloads on nodes. And then as for whether you can do like resource pinning, I know there's some NUMA support. Wait, hang on. Sorry, that's the wrong link. But I don't know much about, CPU pinning, for example. But yes, um, I don't know. Carlos might know something about that.
Yeah, I would very confident say that yes, you can do that. I'm just unsure about if it's like general availability, if you need to like some less standard setup, but I'm pretty sure, like very confidently, that that's been pursued, and there's a lot of people doing just that, CPU pinning. And by now, I would expect like container runtimes to already support it pretty well, and maybe it's general availability. But yes, that's an option you can do so for sure. Just not clear to me. Yes, the part of the effort. There's one thing you said that I want to touch upon as well. You mentioned network storage, which gives you a very big benefit in terms of having mobility on their workloads, because if they're pinned to local storage, then they need to run on the node that has the storage.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
it's not like on some workloads, network storage is hard to get network storage with low enough latency in terms of like blockchain workloads. So yes, there's that to have in mind. You're not gonna easily get NVMe level latency on network storage. That's not easy at all.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Yeah, no, because the main question was asked because I know I've had some discussions with Chris about his ideal setup.
And I'm gonna take the chance then to add just something extra.
Switched accidentally to my computer. So what I was saying, like I had some discussions with Chris a few months ago or a few weeks ago And he mentioned network storage, like Ceph storage, more or less, like distributed storage, being one of the requirements for the best setup. And yeah, but like I said, it comes with downsides.
Yes, you're not going to get that level of latency on Ceph. It's
Yeah.
going to always be like something which is much higher than what you get locally on an NVMe. Like 20 milliseconds, I think would be reasonable to have, which can be a lot for very workloads that rely on random small writes. And
Yeah, 30 milliseconds is a lot, considering NVMe latency to the CPU and back is like 70 nanoseconds at most.
Yes. So yes, there are workloads for which that doesn't matter that much, and then there are some that are very sensitive to that. So it's going to be hard to get much lower, like anything comparable from Ceph. I'm saying hard, but basically it's going to be impossible.
Yeah.
I'm just going to add something else quickly that may be of interest to you, which is Kubernetes has all of these interfaces, but it's also been designed to be very extensible. Like it's all API based and it's very, very extensible. So, for instance, we're talking about resources, and we have like CPU and memory. Those are resources you can do requests for, but you can come up with your own and extend the API with like custom resources. So as long as you do some kind of workload, some kind of like small logic that keeps track of when you're consuming it, say your workload that is asking for some resource you invented, like cotton candy, that you only have on that one node. And you put some like script that runs when your container starts or whatever that just signals to the API that consumed X amount of cotton candy. Like you just kind of manage that. You're responsible for that, but you can extend the API with like very easily. There's a lot of accessibility to the Kubernetes API. It's a platform that you can very much customize to your needs.
Got it. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, because
Yes,
it's also something completely opposite from what I'm doing now, which is manually creating VMs, manually assigning VMs to CPU cores, manually making sure that the NVMe disk is in the same NUMA space, like the appropriate half of the server and stuff like that. It's yeah. Well, I am doing this all this manually. If I go to like revamp and I'm also on Proxmox, which is creating VMs and not just running bare metal with Kubernetes figuring out things for itself. Yeah, but I'm willing to test it on probably heads now, not home, because I don't think it makes sense to run it inside Kubernetes, inside Proxmox. I mean, because you're gonna have a double layer of virtualization basically, which I already do because I run a bunch of Docker containers for the index nodes and so on.
yes. I think for your use case, it makes sense to deploy Kubernetes on bare metal. I agree.
It's definitely possible to just play around, with VMs and get a good sense for how things work without deploying to bare metal hosts. Particularly, if you're using very capable hardware. My assumption
Sorry,
would
Chris, I'm not sure if it's just on my side, but you seem to be breaking up a bit.
I might be having internet issues.
Maybe try again now. I don't know, yeah, because it was working and then it just sort of started interrupting. While Carlos
Hey,
and
by the way, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's fine. You go ahead.
I wanted to ask, have you guys figured out how to run your own IPFS node and connect it to whatever the hosted service or stuff that you can actually like hold your own files and not rely on third parties?
We haven't done any of that as far as I'm aware, and
Okay.
I'm not sure if we're planning to. Maybe Chris can add a comment about that. But that can be something that can be it just running gateway requires some form of IPFS configuration. So
Sorry, I was typing. Is there a direct question I can answer?
Do you guys have IPFS figured out inside your stack or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Because I've had some issues with IPFS just yesterday, and I was told I can peer off the hosted service, but it also requires a public IP address and a peer node, which supposedly change. Yeah, I'm not sure what's the best approach.
In my limited experience with it, using like this was, admittedly quite a long time ago, but like I had issues with data availability and files or content seamlessly propagating from the hosted service node to my node. So yeah, we currently use the like recommended centralized PFS endpoint.
Okay. And yeah, I'm just reading the chat. You said I'm more likely to extract maximum performance out of the hardware using.
Yeah,
No,
I
I'm.
just mean like in some way, you are taking the approach of like, maximum resource utilization by like manually scheduling everything and ensuring like low latency
Each
paths and
CPU has it. Each VM has its own CPU space with its NVMe attached to that space, basically. But yeah, that's basically the approach. And you're right. I would get more performance using LXC, not VMs. That is entirely correct. But still for that now.
right. Yeah, no, my question was whether you're using or LXC.
Yeah, I'm on VMs. I'm not LXC, but LXC would have been the best for extracting maximum performance, like you said.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't run ZFS. I don't run any of the slowness thing, copy and write file systems that makes you just want to quit every time you start it up. I'm running, so I went through a lot. Like I formatted my disks twice. Copied stuff around just to make sure that I have 4K sectors in everything, including the host and the VM disks. But I'm running XFS, so yeah, it should be close to native performance. Not closest, but close. The only thing that I need to do more is to move to LXC, but that's out of scope for now.
Yeah, I think the overhead there is very negligible. Like VM doesn't have a lot of overhead. I think you pay one thing, like you pay a price, which is you lose the ability to share resources, say like RAM, because I presume you run more than one VM.
No. It shares RAM as well with there's a thing inside Proxmox. It's called RAM deduplication. But it has a different let me find it. It's dynamic memory management.
like
It's for
ballooning,
KVM.
where it moves free memory around from between the VMs. Okay,
yeah,
nice.
it's using like I can share the link here. You can see how much of it you're using if you query that syskernel KSM whatever. And it technically shares resources between your VMs.
Oh, never used that. So I was going to point that as like a downside for VMs in this case.
Yeah, although mine shows 0. So I have no idea if it works or not. But yeah. Yeah, ideally you would want to share RAM within like, because like if you're running, let's say in my case I have let me count because I forgot. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 RPCs into one single server. If I also put a graph node in it and I connect to those RPCs, I could just read from memory without like having to go to disk. Yeah, it's only 7 for now, Matthew. Well, I need to spin up more, but I have the main ones already spun up. The next focus is Firehose. How many nodes do I typically run per machine? It depends. I'm now experimenting with oh, that was for Matthew. Yeah, that's a good question because like you said only 7. Oh Jesus! But like, are all of these RPC nodes? I doubt. Carlos, he's got the new model, the 5. That's why he can run the 200 containers on it.
Yeah, I think Kubernetes really adds something that I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that both you, Payne, and Matthew are suffering from, which is the realization that manual operations don't scale. Like the having all that things to manage does not really, like there's only one Matthew and one Payne, and you can't really scale this up to like 1,000 nodes.
Matthew says that they're auto deploying their containers. But yeah, it's not as robust as Kubernetes, is it? I love that.
It's yes. There was an AI Matthew way before ChatGPT. Yeah, but in my experience, those scripts, it kind of like, we start as hacks, right? Like doing hacks, quick hacks. It's really simple. We have manual commands to orchestrate things, and then we start scripting them, and then we parameterize them. And we kind of do some bug fixing and polish them a bit. But when you start facing wanting more sophisticated things like blue-green deployments, you want like to build pipelines and like integrate all of that, it starts to exploding in complexity and time of development. And you start really assessing, okay, am I gonna really want to code all of this in-house and reinvent the wheel? I'll start taking advantage of more streamlined like offerings that are there and work with other platforms. And it's very hard. It ends up being a lot of development work if you really go after all of those bells and whistles. and you want to do them yourself with scripts in PHP or whatever language, of Perl, whatever.
Of course, arc is always half, unless you particularly choose not to be half of the active RAM. Chris, I need to pick your brain on ZFS, maybe next time or some other time. I know we have those weekly, like bi-weekly chats that we never get to to chat. Maybe next week we're gonna make that happen. Actually, no, because that's Christmas. Crap. Next year.
Payne, would it be useful if we run a ZFS session?
Yeah, like I want to learn more about ZFS. This is like outside of scope of like Launchpad. I'm just interested. Like it's so customizable and so like yeah, it's its own box of worms. Which once you open, there's no coming back. It's good if you tweak it. It runs like shit if you don't, which is why I'm so interested with it. Of it, yeah.
Maybe then EoY may be a better platform for just general
For sure.
ZFS, but maybe we can all coordinate.
But I was thinking we should also do something in InfraDAO now that we have InfraDAO around. We can hold sessions about the infrastructure there, and like leave IOH for like indexer related stuff, and then have InfraDAO with the infrastructure office hours. What do you guys think? By the way, if you haven't joined, 1 second, I can get you the invite link. It is indexer related. That's true, but we're also talking about like general RPCs and stuff. Like I'm not sure if it can fit in IOH because like within IOH we have like other sorts of discussions. I'm just worried that it falls out. It fell out of scope.
I don't think it's out of scope. And we have IOH regularly enough. There's, time for both, infra type content and non-infra content.
Sure.
But yeah, it'll be if you do infra hours of some sort in InfraDAO, that'll be interesting as well. That'll be interesting. All right, I'm aware of we're running out of time, so any more feedback or anything you'd like to see in the next in LOH in 2024 before I move on to the next section. Section.
Before you leave, there's gonna be Twitter Spaces in 5 minutes from now. Talking about the upgrade indexer and a bunch of other things. I'm gonna be there as one of the speakers.
Send us a link, please.
No idea where can I find it? It's gonna be on Twitter. It's the Twitter Spaces. I'm such a boomer when it comes to Twitter.
Okay, all right. yes, if you think of any more feedback and stuff like that, whether even if it's outside this session, please do send us. Any feedback is welcome. Any request for sessions and all of that, very, very welcome. Okay, so moving on. So in terms of road ahead, what we plan to do in the next year. So adding Firehose and Substream support. We've already started for Firehose, but then we've been sidelined with other performance improvements and stuff like that to the whole stack. So we're planning to add this in the new year. We're planning to make schemas available. So the schemas that Carlos showcased last LOH, so that we can avoid issues with templating and YAML and stuff like that. So that we're planning to make that available soon. Adding back support for Cello, Polygon, and bringing in Optimism support again in the new year. Improve documentation, add Fedora CoreOS guides. We plan to come up with a better secrets management solution. Right now we're using sealed secret. It works good enough, but there's, there are things that could be done better. Planning to improve observability layers, so add more dashboards, add more alert rules, talk about how you can set those up so that you have like an incident response type system, whether you use one of those tools like VictorOps, PagerDuty, Ethical, or just rely on Slack. And bring in some data backup and data moving capability, or at least document some solutions there. This is what we have for the head. Conscious that we have 3 minutes. So quick special thanks. So PNAX team, I want to say a special thank you to Matthew specifically for asking all of the hard questions, and to Vince for trying the stack, and the rest of the PNAX team. To Payne as well, sorry I haven't added you here, but yeah, to Payne, special thank you before you go. GPhil and a few others that have been asking questions, and more holistically to the entire community for engaging, asking questions, responding to our questions, all of that. So thank you very much. In terms of sense of priorities ahead, Matthew, you're asking about, you're interested in alerting staff as next priority. That actually fits in with what we're improving upon literally as we speak. So we are also working on that. We're improving on that, and we will be able to make that a priority to share. Right now, yeah, we're working on different streams at the same time, but the observability layer and alerting have been a priority for a while, so it needs to be finished very soon. All right. Run out of time. So LOH resumes on the 17th of January 2024. We're basically taking a break, all of that. And the end of year POAP, the secret phrase is happy holidays. And you have 15 minutes from now to claim it. Again, a massive thank you to everyone and to the GraphOps team. And sorry if I haven't given you a shout out if I missed you. It wasn't intentional. Thank you to everyone who's joining all the time. And if you have any comments, we have 1 minute. And then we can jump onto that Twitter space that Payne mentioned. And as Billy said, please do drop your feedback and topic suggestions as well. It's useful for us so that we know what to cover, what people need, and all of that. All right. Well, if there's no more comment, wishing everyone a happy holidays, happy New Year. See you next year. Don't forget your POAP. And yeah, see you next year.